Hello and welcome to the Angular from Scratch part 7 in this video series, and in this lesson we'll bind our border property to a button click. As we know, the border property inside the app components template is set to this .thickness variable coming from the app components class file. Additionally, a button click event right here calls the random color method, which is also defined in the app components class file right here. So now we'll combine the two, and this is actually a very easy task. First, we'll reset the thickness value to a 0, and we'll also add a color value, which will be an empty string. So color equals an empty string. Let's also start playing with the constructor here inside the class. For now, I just want to console log the value of thickness and color, and I'll use the constructor to do it as an easy way to console log values from a class member. Here's some nicely formatted console logging with the help of ES6 template strings. So we're console logging the thickness and the color right here. Okay, so I get my info here when I file save all, and I get my info right here. But as you'll see later, this info will not refresh when I refresh the values of thickness and color later on when I click on this button. We won't discuss this further. I'll leave that for some other video, but for now, I just want you to keep this in mind. Okay, so now let's discuss the new method that I'll build by combining the random color and the random width methods. Let's actually hide the Explorer right here to have more space. And I'm defining a brand new method here. And let's name it random values. So random values, parentheses, curly braces. And it's not taking any parameters, so I'll leave this just an open and close parenthesis. And it's just assigning values to the thickness member of the app components class. So I'll go this .thickness, and I'll reuse the existing code. So let's go right here, and let's just do this thickness is math.round, math.random times 100. Additionally, I also want to assign values to the this.color member of this class. So I'll just copy whatever is in the hex here and paste it right in here. So obviously, I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I have all the necessary code from my other two methods, and that means that I no longer need them. So let me just delete them and keep this nice and simple. File save all, and of course it's gonna throw an error because now it's confused. So let's fix it up. Back in the template file of my app component, I'm going to change the click to random values. And so far so good. There's nothing else here, so let's do file save all. And when I click on get random color, it's not working because obviously it's only giving me a random border. So I'm going to say get random values here to make it less confusing. So file save all, and now when I click get random values, currently I'm randomizing the border thickness, so that's good. Next, inside the table element, I'm not obviously changing the binding to the border, but let me add another binding right here. So I'll bind to the BG color attribute, and the BG color attribute will bind to this dot color. So this is actually an HTML4 attribute. This attribute is deprecated, so don't try this at home. But it's an easy way to demo my updates. So that's a simple update to my table, but I want to show something really interesting. So if I do File, Save All, and now when I click Get Random Values, I'm getting both the random thickness on my table border, but I'm also getting a random value of the color. So that's an easy way to demo this. And one other thing, if you want to inspect the BG color here, you're going to find it right here. So notice that the BG color on the table itself as an attribute is all lower caps, but here it's actually uppercase C. So if I try to do something that's not syntactically correct, I'm going to get a warning. So let's change it back to this. And now you might think that, well, since we're using the BG color on the table, we might as well use it on the button. So let's just do this and File, Save All. And obviously this will throw an error because there's no attribute of BG color on a button element, not even in HTML4. So this brings us to an interesting situation where I might want to update this using inline styles, but how do we do that in Angular? So actually it's pretty easy stuff. We just need to do a custom ng style with a capital S, and then inside of this right here, we do a pair of curly braces, opening and closing, and I'll just type background, and I'll do this dot color. So now when I click File, Save All, my app should start working again, and this time my button is also getting a background color as well as the table. If I wanted by any chance to have a starting value of some sort, I could do color, for example, yellow right here in the class. So now let's also show the console right here. And when I File, Save All, the constructor is going to show that the initial color is yellow. And now when I click it, it's going to change. But of course, the constructor is only running initially, so it's not changing this value, although the values here are changing. So like I said, we're going to get back to this later. But for now, let's go back to the template and just discuss another thing, and that's if you want to add multiple styles to your ng style attribute, you just add a comma here and type, for example, font-size this dot thickness. Let's see what's going to happen here. It's probably going to be interesting. So now obviously I'm getting some kind of an error. So obviously my syntax is a bit wrong here. I still need to use these as strings. So the property inside the CSS declaration needs to be a string, and then the value can be a variable or another string if it's hard-coded. So let's do File, Save All. And now let's try to click the button, but for some reason, well, of course, this thickness plus px. All right, so let's try it again. File, Save All. And now we are getting these random values. And of course, since it's starting with a 0, we need to make it so that the initial thickness is, let's say, at least, well, let's say it's 20. File, save again. And now it should look a bit more decent. And as a final touch right here, let's do something a bit silly, and we're going to change the click event to the mouse over. Or, yeah, mouse over is good. So let's make it the mouse over, file, save all. And now when I mouse over my button, it's gonna update the values. If you want to make it even crazier, you might do mouse move, but let's actually just make it a simple click event listener and file, save all again. And that's basically it for this video. In the next one, we'll compare one-way and two-way data binding in Angular.